everyone, and welcome back to the Odd Ducklings, the podcast where we talk about neurodivergent careers, life, and everything in between. I'm kind of contemplating actually changing this name to Atypical People, Managing Careers and Goals, or something to that extent. But that might be just a bit chickeny of me, because the word neurodivergent is not that established yet, and not too many people know what that actually means. And I find it a bit hard. So just in case you are one of those people, neurodivergent, in a nutshell, means the neurological way, the way your brain is wired, the way it works is not typical. It works a bit differently. It's not crooked per se. I mean, maybe in a witch house, cool, crooked sometimes. Sometimes it's crooked and about to fall, but bottom line is it works a bit differently. But it definitely doesn't mean that you can't have a career or a life or everything as you want it. I'm not going to stand here and say that no one who is neurodivergent doesn't have this in a debilitating way. This is not it. But I feel like that crowd already has quite a voice to it because of the necessity of things. And I feel like the people that are having a hard time achieving their goals, but might benefit more from this voice of us talking about what it's like to be atypical, to be a bit odd, to be an odd duckling, and still get your goals. And the way we're managing this is by talking to people who, to an extent, did just that. So these people, they have a career or they established their dream, and it's like, maybe it's just kickstarting. It's not necessarily that they are high and mighty just yet. I don't think it's that relevant. And we see what they did to get there and what their thoughts were. And personally, I know that it's helped me so much with my personal growth, and I'm hoping that you, the listeners, will get a similar experience as well. So I felt like I had to take this off my heart here for a minute, but let me know what you thought. Like, was this relevant, not relevant? In any case, this episode specifically, it's going to be a bit different. If usually, again, we talk to people, this time, it's just us, you and me, you and I. There's a reason why today is just me. And the reason is that what we're actually going to be doing with this episode is a bit of an introduction to a subject, because the following interviews that will be coming after this will mostly be focusing on this subject. The reason why this episode is interesting is because I actually already have a recording of the first interview for this topic. And what I've noticed as we were having this discussion is a lot of the conversation was between two ladies who knew about the condition enough to have a conversation but didn't go into details. It felt a bit odd, and not in a good way, to listen to it as someone who is external and realize I don't know what they're talking about. They're referring to something with just a name, and it's not explained. I realize this is something that's going to come up again and again. And unless we kind of address the full topic, we're not really going to really get into it and understand the details. So all of that is something that I want to explore with you. I don't feel like I can explore this without kind of covering the basics. And to do that, we need to cover and understand the topic. In any case, it's just the two of us, and we're kicking off with something that's really important and something that I am, to be perfectly honest, dreading and really excited about. And the reason that I am dreading and excited about this is that although I've been vocalizing the fact that I am neurodivergent and I've been talking quite openly about having ADHD, I barely ever mentioned the fact that I have a condition called PMDD. I think I actually mentioned it in the previous episode, considering whether or not I should keep it. I think I actually left it in. And the reason was because I knew this was coming and I wanted to kind of work the muscle of putting it out there. Now, what does PMDD actually stand for? I'm not going to go too much into details, but in a nutshell, this is an extreme version of PMS. And if you've looked at the title, you'll see that we're not talking just about PMDD. What we're talking about is, and I found it a bit hard to kind of find the right definition, so bear with me and I hope it's clear. It's misdiagnosed and mistreated conditions that were mistreated or misdiagnosed due to gender bias. A lot of that is going to fall on the female side of things, so I do want to apologize in advance. When we talk about gender bias, what we are basically talking about is ways in which systematic assumptions are being made about the gender of the person in front of you and what it means regarding what they have and how they're feeling, and we're making assumptions based on that. This can naturally or factually lead to serious consequences, and these people's health and well-being is being either mistreated and then harmed, or ignored and then harmed by, ignoring a condition that is harming them. And I think we can't talk about this without realizing that this is not an historical situation. It's live and it's here. And one research that I found recently and I found to be very interesting is a research that basically took a video of male and females going through certain pains. They assessed that the expressions were the same, all of the above, and they showed it to thousands of people to kind of gather their reaction. And whether they showed it to male, female, or any other gender, it was very clear that the main assumption was usually that the man was really, really suffering and they had to get help, like ASAP help. While looking at the female, they would usually downplay her pain. So bias is here, and sadly, it's not going away too fast. So we need to assess ourselves, and excuse this, I don't like pulling this card, but our privilege sometimes even, and not ignore the fact that people are being ignored and mistreated. And that's kind of where we're going with this, right? Okay, so this is a bit of a disclaimer, and I feel like I really owe an apology to any group who might not end up being represented in the next few episodes, just because I either lack the people to be talking to about this, and in that case, feel free to connect me to people that you feel like this would be a very relevant example of. And also, it's a bit lacking because the research was historically so twisted towards male. You actually don't see a lot of male situations. You do see conditions that were ignored in the sense of we're not feeling too confident talking about emotions or about being well, about depression. And I think this is a very important topic. We've touched on it a tiny bit throughout some of the episodes that we've had before. I'm going to extend this apology with all of my heart, not only to males who will not be as represented, even though I would very much love to hear from males as well. So if you have anyone who'd fit the bill with what I just described, please connect us. I would be happy to have a more balanced interview following with on this subject. Maybe it is important that I do cover the subject of the impact of boys don't cry or not showing that you are hurt and stuff like that. That being said, I think there's another group there, might be bigger, might be smaller, I have no idea, that is going to be not getting as much attention as I would have liked. And that is basically anyone who doesn't fall under this definition of male or female. And the main reason is there's not a lot of research. I feel like I've tried. This might be my lacking research abilities. So if you do know of something, please send it my way. I'm very happy and really interested in exploring the broad aspect of this idea. And of course, we will be talking about all of this in regard to how it impacted us at work and what we did to kind of move on and build something from ourselves, and what we do still, what do we struggle still with. And unlike the previous episodes where I think we usually covered things that are kind of mainstream, I'm not saying this with any disregard or anything, but this was autism, ADHD, and things that are pretty commonly talked about. But for example, I felt like I needed to explain PMDD because I didn't know what it was. I had the condition to the point that it was really textbook. I went to the doctors every time. I told them exactly all of the symptoms. And if they would have known that this disease exists, they would have diagnosed me 3 years ago. So yeah, as you see, there's some anger here, right? I wonder why I'm angry. Maybe it's because I spent 3 to 5 years being untreated for something because nobody's educating about it. But we are here and we are about to be educating. I'm as educated as I can be right now, but of course I'm aiming to learn more. Everything I just talked about was a bit of a mix between me really apologizing to you guys for this not being a very balanced subject, because sadly, at least as we see it today and as we know it today, it really is not balanced. Kind of wish it was. But it was also a way for me to kind of share with you what this subject is. In any case, let's talk about what it actually means to have a gender bias condition. Let's stop for a minute and not only talk about not getting diagnosed. Let's talk about the impact of getting a misdiagnosis. And in this case, if we are referring to males first, just to kind of have a balance here, we're talking about a male showing signs of distress, but eventually not really complaining about something or not sharing the main reason due to shame regarding what it is that's actually bothering him, or just the societal norm of not speaking about your emotions. And that leads to the devastating fact that we have 3 times more men committing suicide than we do females. And that is, if that's not horrible, I don't know what is. It's very sad, and it would contain trigger alerts naturally. But if you know someone who sadly went through this and grew from it, I would be very happy to know. Not to disrespect the first example and how horrifying and sad it is to see the difference in suicide with male versus female. One more case that we really need to establish is the amount of females throughout history that got lobotomized or instituted in asylums, in insane asylums, and treated horribly throughout treatments that were like electric shock and all sort of like silent treatments, and being like tied to the bed for the fact that they either had a pain condition or they had complained about things not being comfortable, usually due to some disability, could be even ADHD or something to that extent. We don't factually know, but it was a lot more common to see this happening to females. And in a more down-to-earth today situation, you can see women with what I have, PMDD, being not treated because it's just PMS, it's normal. Like 80% of females have it, right? So yeah, this is me being a bit tired from the whole idea of talking about the consequences while trying to recover from them. Apologies. So what is a gender bias condition? In a nutshell, it's a condition that was misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all and not noticed because, well, somebody saw gender and decided that, it probably doesn't hurt, does it? And the sad thing is that that happens until today. I'm going to start with a bit of information regarding this and to kind of emphasize on why this is important. So we already know that historically, research was barely at all done on females. Even psychology was something that avoided. Thank you, Freud, for that. That's lovely. We don't want to speak to women now, do we? I am angry about this, and I am a bit one-sided, so I'm going to try and avoid putting my anger into this. But it's that time of the month. It's not, but you'll get my anger. In any case, so research was not too common, which means if there was a different reaction to the medication that ended up being the solution for a condition, and it reacted differently in female bodies, it was never actually discovered. And when females came and tried to complain on something hurting, something being unpleasant due to medication, they would be either dismissed or managed under the title of hysteria once again. Another angle to be looking at this is that female-only conditions were completely ignored. So if we look at conditions that were established in the last 50 years, you see a massive list of conditions, and we're not talking about conditions that were like reiterated. Up until 10 years ago, you see conditions being defined almost like from thin air, like they never existed, though it's very clear they were not made yesterday. And these conditions were mainly conditions that had to do with pain. A lot of pain conditions were on that list, or anything had to do with hormones and hormones working a bit differently. Of course, also things that are behavioral. This is where we would be a bit more balanced, because a lot of items that had to do with like mental health and taking care of being, happy and whatnot were completely dismissed for men, right? You couldn't be sad if you were a man. Talking about your emotions is still on some people's list of like I'm never going to do that. And that takes a toll. But on the female side of things, this took a different toll. One condition that we should definitely talk about where women were misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed is definitely ADHD. I feel very strongly about this naturally because I, at the age of 37, got a diagnosis for something that could have helped me so much in my life. And yes, it helped me now to understand whatever I have, yada, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that girls were often seen as daydreamers or like, just a bit of a floaty airhead something. It's not that that never affected any males in this situation, but it was such a drastic difference. ADHD is something that has been known to have 70 to 80% male impact. And that is officially not the case. We know for a fact that so many adult females are getting this diagnosis now. It's such a huge wave that we get so many YouTube pages just talking about that. You don't need to just go on YouTube. You can look at the research, and I do not remember the numbers, but I can promise you it's not 80% male. And that's one diagnosis that we're not necessarily going to focus on. But if we are talking about what it means to have a gender bias, this is such a good example. And again, if you look at these conditions that were misdiagnosed, you can see the amount of women that were sent to asylums that were having lobotomy just because they felt sick. And apparently hysteria, it's treated differently, and you don't really need to know the details. And that bugs me. And I think today it shouldn't exist, right? So I'm talking about all of these really, really historical things. And yeah, here we see so many ADHDers are getting the diagnosis now, and we are aware of this. And look, Daria, you got the PMDD diagnosis, right? You know what you have. Yeah, I got the PMDD diagnosis 3 to 5 years too late. And that's another point. When we look at these conditions and we compare them to conditions that were not gender bias or how it impacted males, males are getting the diagnosis way faster. All of these diseases that we are now starting to be aware of, but not talking about because you didn't know what PMDD is, or you didn't know what PCOS is, or I definitely don't know what PCOS is. That's kind of why I'm going very deeply into this, like lupus, all of these conditions that are not new. They've been here for so long and have impacted 51% of population of the bloody world. We're not yelling it hard enough. And that brings to a situation where women who do get this diagnosis have to wait anywhere from 3 to 10 years to actually find it. In the list of people that I want to interview, I have at least one person who is still looking for a definition of what she's going through. And with that, I kind of want to loop you in to one more piece of information that came from that research. I looked at the list of all of the different diseases that were discovered or managed in the last 50 years. I looked at the data of like, what's the percentage of female versus male? So many of them, if not all of them, are female, like 80 to 70%. And like, I'm angry. In any case, another information that kind of came from all of that list is that approximately 70% of these diseases are qualified as pain diseases. And I already kind of brushed this information that pain diseases are a thing that was kind of ignored throughout the years. They were either like treated as something completely different, like a mental condition that is nothing to do with it, or it was treated as a completely different, like a bowel movement conditions. They get treated and they get treated for the wrong thing. And that just makes these people more sick. And that doesn't just apply to females. That's a very broad thing. And the reason I'm raising this is because, especially when we are talking about pain conditions, I asked my friend ChatGPT to kind of explain this. So we have this huge list, right? All back to 50 years from now. So I asked ChatGPT to go with me through the list and kind of explain to me why it was realized so late, why it was not diagnosed before this. And the second thing I asked him is to explain to me why is the gender bias there. The male part would usually be anything from emotionally constipated to being uncomfortable talking about male genitalia. And I'm not dismissing this at all. I think it's really important that we don't ignore the fact that, some male genitalia could get, for example, cancer. And that's a cancer, for example, that was not treated because we were afraid to talk about the system that brings life in the male section, because apparently that's not part of the magic. It's just the females. I'm angry in both directions. Does that help? I hope it helps. In any case, ChatGPT repeatedly told me regarding this. Females are apparently not as capable of managing pain, which is why they complain more. And that is why there's more diagnosis going towards the female side. Not, for example, that they have a set of hormones that are at work all the time and they are different from male, and they have this cycle that we very well know kind of messes with them on all other aspects. But I digress. So ChatGPT is absolutely sure that females are just not capable of managing pain. And I challenged that once again. I asked, am I reading this right? Because again, it's a huge list, that this is a repetitive situation. And he said yes. He's very happy to say yes in any case. ChatGPT, he's a pleaser. Yeah. But he said yes. And I got angry and I said, like, okay, we are doing serious research here. We need to figure this out, right? And oh boy. So I started digging into this. So again, all of the conditions that we looked at, pain was a major thing. And the second one that he kept giving me is the different hormones. So it's not like he completely ignored this as part of what's going on, but he definitely kind of hung on to the idea that females are like incapable of managing pain, at least in like compared to male counterparts. So I asked for proof, right? That's what you do. And I was directed to some research. So let me tell you what that research actually entailed. The bottom line is it has somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 people in the research, which sounds nice, right? I mean, it sounds nice up until the moment that you realize this is not a research. This is a compilation of about, don't take me specifically on the number here, but I think it was 20 something researchers, and it's just a compilation of these 20 researchers. Apparently, if you collect all of these researchers, you have about 3,000 people there, and you can say, we have a conclusion, which is nice, right? Quite problematic if you think about the fact that this is not consistent. We don't know that we agree with how they research things. And don't take it from me. I actually just started looking at, okay, so give me more researchers that actually contradict this, or give me peer review. What was actually thought of this conclusion? And then you see a billion of peer reviews articles from multiple sources stating that this research is, well, more or less what I just said. It's a compilation of multiple researchers. A lot of them are questionable as how they actually made these decisions. And if you actually look at the data, a lot of them actually don't have that straightforward of a response regarding male feeling less pain, female feeling more pain. So not only is this not done in a similar manner, it also doesn't necessarily say what the person who kind of made the compilation wanted to tell us. But this is so well established that when I asked ChatGPT, this is what he gave me. ChatGPT was telling me about gender bias while being gender bias with the research that he showed me. And the fact that he had all the rest of the research debunking this. Honestly, I don't think I have words for this. So shame on you, ChatGPT. Gender bias is here, and I hope it's not here to stay, but this is why it matters so much that we talk about this. That is why it matters so much that we cover as many of these conditions as we can, so that you can recognize and talk about it if you know someone who might be going through this. And if you are going through this, like I was, you're not going to have to wait 3 to 5 years to find out that you have a condition and start getting it treated. You're not going to get as burned out as I was, because you're going to know what it is. And I'm not saying that we have this power with this wee little duckling of ours, but it's the one step in the right direction, and many more people will be doing this. And I hope that the following interviews will be something that you feel very as strongly about as I do, because this is so important. I will soon finish this episode because I think this was kind of established. I just want to kind of highlight how important this is before we go into this. The idea for this podcast is we talk about conditions to raise our awareness and kind of give us solutions to what's going on. That's not great, because I was on my search for so many years until I found it. And even my ADHD was something that I've been completely dismissed regarding for so long, and getting treatment for it is so helpful. And don't get me wrong, it's not like all my life up until then was like bloody failure. I mean, I was happy. My employers were happy. You can have a great career not knowing what you have, but you are risking a burnout. That's why so many people want to promote mental health and want to promote talking to a therapist to understand what's on with you. And I think it's great. It's a great start, because a lot of these conditions, whether they are mental or physical, are things that we need to address, and we need to find where it comes from, what it does, and how we use it or fix it or help it, because we burn out so easily. I'm kind of blabbering here. In any case, yes, I think it's really, really important. I think we need to be talking about this. And I think the first step that I'm going to do for us to be talking about this is having these interviews. And I'm going to start with a subject that is hurting me so much, because I still feel this shame. I don't know why. I don't think I should. I wouldn't tell anyone else that they should. But the fact that I have a condition called PMDD, and the fact that if you look it up online, I sound disabled, I sound insane. And believe it or not, I don't think I am. I think I'm okay, even though I'm speaking to myself in an empty room, said the girl speaking to herself in an empty room. So thank you so much for being here with me for this kind of emotional episode that we're having. I do want to spend a few more moments with you, kind of looking into these main conditions, kind of naming them, for two purposes. First, if you know someone who is incredible and has any of these conditions or anything similar to that, and again, under this definition, help me out, connect us. I have a lot of people, but it's always within my ability of research. It's always within my ability of understanding the statement, and I don't want to have this limitation. And the second reason I'm going to do this is because I think we need to hear these being stated so many more times, so that next time that you think like, oh, I'm feeling this and that, you might think, maybe I have this, maybe it's this thing. Or being educated, it's just like, Like, why do we even have this magical thing making, like, it's not for cat photos, right? It's not, I don't have my phone here. It's there. It's recording. It's recording. It's there. But we have this magical phone, this access to the internet, all the knowledge in the world. And what we do with it is, wonderful things like this podcast, if I say so myself. But we don't always get educated because we don't always know what to look for. And that is where I try to give you what I know. And I'm very much looking forward to getting some information back from you. As I said, I find it really important for us to be talking about these conditions. And I want us to be stopping and kind of mentioning some of these conditions that should be very much acknowledged. And I think one cute way of doing this is looking at people who we all know. For example, we have Michael J. Fox, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which is something that usually did not tend to be diagnosed for men. So this was actually missed. It was diagnosed late, and we all know where that went, right? So it's not fair in that sense. So this is just one example of, like, be aware that this is something that can happen. I think with the publicity regarding Michael J. Fox, this became a bit more common knowledge, which is great. Another example we absolutely need to remember is lupus. And sadly, in 2013, Selena Gomez was actually diagnosed with lupus. She revealed this a bit later, and she spoke about this quite openly. I think this is something that is so important, especially because lupus is very much a female disease that was not really established up until not too long ago. So another example is Gigi Hadid, who actually is a model, and she was, she was on television, she was a Victoria's Secret model, and she did so much. Did you happen to know that she also has the Hashimoto disease? It's Hashimoto's thyroid, and it's an autoimmune disorder. And, she talks about the impact that it had on her, because one impact that she had was losing weight, but she didn't want to end up being underweight or unhealthy because of it. Despite, in the model world, this might even be perceived as something that is positive. But she had this really important point of view of saying, like, my health is important, and not letting it go downhill from there. So another example that we need to know about, and honestly, this is going to be the last, just so that I don't hold you guys for too long. Whether you like her or not, I think she's kind of cool. So Lady Gaga has the condition fibromyalgia. It's a condition that I often hear named just fibro or fibro, and I don't know if that's the right way, but that's like what I've heard so far. And she even wrote a song about it, which is kind of way to go. Hardcore move. I love it. So apparently Lady Gaga is not only being like an amazing artist, being so incredible at it, and being so like out there with everything she does, absolutely an odd duckling if you ask me. She's also living with fibromyalgia. And I am going to apologize. I am not sure that I'm pronouncing this right. So fibromyalgia is, and I'm quoting because I feel like it's way better than me sharing my way of looking at it. It is a chronic, long-lasting disorder that causes pain and tenderness throughout the body, as well as fatigue and trouble sleeping. This description sounds horrible, but isn't it better to hear the person who actually has it talk about it? Lady Gaga was quoted saying, "It's every day waking up to not knowing how you're going to feel." 5 years ago, she was coming out and saying, "I don't know how I will feel today or tomorrow." It's such a strong statement because she's a career person. She cares so much about what she does. And I assume you do too. And she found a way to make it work. And she also found a way to not be ashamed of it. And there's something about this, and saying this as a professional person, as a person who comes on and gives a show, you need to be able to come on stage and give your all. And like you and I, we might need to go to the office or to go to a meeting or to convince a client. None of us are escaping life, and none of us are running away from our condition, and none of us are running away from the goals that we are trying to achieve. We might be taking a moment, but remember, it's because we all do this, and this is the stage that you are in. Don't take this as you're broken. I did this so many times. I still do sometimes, and I think it doesn't help. It doesn't help me, and I don't think it will help you. I can't decide for you, but this would be my 2 cents. So Lady Gaga comes with all this pain, and I think the next one is even more painful, which she said, "I get so irritated with people who don't believe fibromyalgia is real." And you get that for so many of these conditions. They're under-researched. They're only starting to look into them. They're under-communicated. How would you believe something if nobody is talking about it? We're getting educated on more conditions so that we can get treatment to other people, get treatment for ourselves, and find the solutions. On the go, we can also learn from these people, because even if I don't have fibromyalgia, I definitely experience things where the solutions found by people who do have it could benefit me in the sense that I could learn from them. As I said, this is a subject that I feel very strongly about. It's so important for me that we talk about biases, and specifically gender bias is something that I think we all suffer from. And the part of it that impacted my life and the part that impacts a lot of other lives is hurting me, and is something that I want us to solve, which is one of the main reasons why I'm doing this, but also because it's so important. It makes such a huge difference to be medicated, get diagnosed. And you might have someone like that next to you or in your office, and we need to improve this. We need to get it better. And the way we can get it better is by talking about it. So in the next few episodes, we will be having these discussions. We will be coming to the table, talking about the pain of having this condition. We will try to get you as educated as possible regarding the condition at the beginning of the episode, so that when you hear the conversation, it's not stopped to kind of like give the information. I want you to go into the next few sessions with this in mind. This is so important for us to fix. This is so important for us to get more knowledge on, because the bias didn't end. These people are still living with it. And the fact that it's still not researched means these people are in the constant search of what it is that's going on with them and what it is that they can do with the thing that is going on with them. And I think I am lucky to an extent that PMDD is, if not well researched, then at least it has a huge community, especially in the UK where I'm not from, but they let you in even if you're not. And it helped so much. So if you do have something, look for a community. It's just a, pro tip before we jump into any of these specific subjects. That being said, I just wanted to thank all of you for spending the time here with me, listening to me mumble and be angry and maybe be a bit unconventional to what we do here in this podcast. And I don't know, maybe what people do in general, I have no idea. I should, but I don't. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I'm sure you're wonderful, and I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful rest of the week. And let me know what you think. And most importantly, stay odd. It's absolutely boring when people are acting normal. You're definitely odd, so don't hide it. All right. Cheers.